What's up, everyone? Alex here, and welcome to my little corner of the internet. It's a little more brightly colored. I cannot tell if it's really that obvious, but I just put in some new light bulbs, and the lighting in here is so bright white. I have like studio lighting now, basically. I talked about maverine masculinity in another video, and I want to like roll it back and talk about neutral masculinity and what that tends to mean. Specifically, I'm talking about gender qualities or expression. Neutral and masculine are both gender qualities. They don't necessarily denote a gender, but someone's gender can be intrinsically tied with their gender quality or even like an alignment to those qualities. So neutrality it typically refers to being not masculine or feminine, and it is a specific type of quality. Not everything that's not masculine or feminine is neutral. There's a lot of stuff that's like maverine is not neutral. It's also not masculine or feminine. So not everything that's outside of masculine or feminine should be lumped in with neutral, but that's where neutral lies, is outside of those, but not far outside of convention. Sometimes it means gender ambiguity, sometimes it means androgyny, and it entirely depends on how the person is using that term. So somebody who considers themselves gender neutral may be more in the ambiguous zone, whereas someone might consider themselves more androgynous or even genderless. People who don't have a gender might consider their gender to be neutral in some way or their expression to be neutral in some way. I'm in the ballpark of definitely gendered, and the neutral part of my gender, being neutroi, is not masculine or feminine. It is entirely neutral. It can be genderless, but in my case, I'm more in the neutral realm. So still gendered, not strongly gendered, and not really leaning any which way into masculine or feminine. Some people do call that androgyny, if you're kind of dead center and you don't lean one way or the other, but you can be outside of them and not lean one way or the other, kind of a fourth point, kind of outside that spectrum of masculine, feminine, and then the in-between, which is androgynous. So I fall into that fourth point, and neutrality for me, kind of like, I talked about having like a soft mask kind of presentation, and I'd say that the neutral part of my identity is what manifests as soft masculinity. So not a very heavily masculine or heavily gendered expression for me. I don't really worry about being overly masculine in how I dress or how I act or how I look. It's kind of on the softer side, a more subdued side. I think subdued is a really good way to explain neutrality as well, especially when you're talking about strongly gendered versus like not so strongly gendered. Subdued, I think, is probably a really good way to explain that, because there's a lot of gender qualities and genders that are strongly felt, strongly gendered. I see a lot of that kind of wording in some definitions. So the subdued feeling of gender falls within the neutral, ambiguous, androgynous kind of cloud of identities. I think I could see neutrality, ambiguity, and androgyny in kind of the same space. I think they could be related by a similar, not strongly gendered thing. So the neutrois side of me also is the reason why I feel mostly male, but not entirely male. It's what kind of draws me to the demi-guy label. I still call myself a demi-guy every so often. Not super commonly, because there's so many other aspects to my identity that, like, I don't feel the need to talk about the amount of maleness that I experience, but every so often I pull out the demi-guy label. People tend to call it demi-boy, but I don't relate to that because I'm 35 years old, and that term demi-boy doesn't really like resonate with me. So I say demi-guy because I think demi-man sounds kind of odd. But neutrality is also the reason why I'm mostly male, not entirely male. Neutral mask for me, besides, presenting as male, wearing a binder, having the beard, the masculine voice. Shirts, a cardigan, jeans. I used to have a ponytail. I had the undercut with a ponytail. I recently cut all of my hair off and I'm letting it regrow. And then I kind of want the ponytail back, but it's taking forever to grow. But usually it's not quite I wouldn't call it a feminine hairstyle. I don't think ponytails should be automatically a feminine hairstyle, but the longer hair that is not a heavily masculine sort of haircut. Personally, if I could grow a bigger beard, I wouldn't let it grow out to be very full. I would keep it trimmed down because that feels more right to me. I feel like a big bushy beard is kind of overly masculine for me. I don't like a ton of facial hair. It's a lot to take care of, and I didn't grow up learning how to take care of facial hair, so having that is just more of a nuisance than anything. Other than that, not really. I don't try to act overly masculine, even in public spaces, just because I pass as male, so I don't feel the need to really hone it in and try to convince people that I'm a man. I'm kind of past that phase in my life. So soft masculine expression, softer masculine way of dressing, mannerisms not too heavily masculine. I'm not worried about how I look or how I carry myself so much. So neutrality can also kind of be a subdued feeling of your own gender. Not quite gender apathy, but more I'm not super worried about presenting in a way that is strongly gendered. But there is a difference between androgyny, as in not being strictly one or the other, and then ambiguity, which is not leaning one way or the other, and you can't really tell either way. It's not a mix of masculine and feminine qualities. It is its own quality that you cannot see masculine or feminine in it. Whereas androgyny, you can see some parts of masculine and feminine coming together sometimes. It depends on how people want to use the term. There's definitely an overlap, but there's definitely also a difference between ambiguity, androgyny, and then the third other kind of neutrality that sits as its own identity, that isn't meant to be ambiguous, isn't meant to be a mix of gender qualities, but existing as its own defined gender quality. That's pretty much it. I've always called neutrois the part that stabilizes my manhood, where manhood is a strongly felt gender for me, and then neutrois kind of mellows it out and makes it so that it is that more subdued gender feeling. So I definitely want to do a video on inner sense of gender and what that means, because I see people talk about it all the time, like a strong inner sense of gender. What does that mean? What are people talking about when they say that? So that's about it. It was kind of a short video, but I didn't really want to get too in depth into this topic because I've covered masculinity. I will probably put other masculine related videos on the end card for you to check out, because I've definitely covered this topic multiple times, and masculinity is not super duper important to me in the way that I like express my gender. I like masculinity, but it's not something I am heavily relying on. Like, I'm not too worried about like being an overly masculine person. I'm kind of just me. I'm kind of just me, and I pass as a man, so I'm not too worried about how I look in order to like solidify that. Other people's experiences with neutrality are definitely going to be different. Neutrality, while it is its own singular, solid identity, it does encompass a lot of different experiences. I've written about it before. It's on my fandom and on the YB3 blog. I talk about like what neutrality means, and all its different little facets. So yeah, that's about it. I am signing off for now. See you later.